only one person was killed. They got to the end of the line. The co-operator on the train, Quinn Morton, hollered, "Back it up, we'll give the sons of bitches another round." This was one of the times Baldwin Feld's mine guards showed little humanity and would not let him do it.
Shortly after the incident at Holly Grove, newly elected Governor Henry D. Hatfield ordered union leaders and coal operators to reach an agreement. When they failed to do so, Hatfield dictated his own terms and forced the strike to an end. Reluctantly, both sides made concessions, which only left them more embittered. The coal operators rededicated themselves to stopping the Union, and they made it plain. If the Union was to come to southern West Virginia, it was going to have to come inch by bloody inch. But the Paint and Cabin Creek strike demonstrated what the miners were willing to endure for the Union. They had gotten a glimpse of what solidarity could win. The mine wars of West Virginia were momentarily interrupted by the Great War. Coal was now vital for national survival. Thousands of West Virginia miners saw active duty. Those who stayed to work the mines were given an increase in wages in return for a promise not to strike for the duration of the war. At war's end, while the rest of America celebrated, many West Virginians returned home to old conflicts. Miners' wages lagged far behind wartime inflation. More aggravating, profits had increased during the war and coal operator earnings had more than doubled. Frustrated by these post-war conditions, the acting president of the United Mine Workers, John L. Lewis, called for a national strike in November 1919.
The 1919 strike was the first time West Virginia miners had really participated in a national coal strike. This was a strike called by Lewis, of course, to get wage increases for the coal miners to match the inflation rates during the time. For several reasons, Lewis and President Woodrow Wilson compromised that strike. Basically, the nation was out of coal. They needed the coal. So Lewis realized that need. He's willing to compromise the strike. And part of the compromise included a small wage increase for the miners, but also recognition of the union.
But in southern West Virginia, in Mingo, McDowell, and southern Logan counties, as well as in Pike County, Kentucky, the strike had never existed. This was an unorganized field, and the miners did not receive the benefit of that strike. This pointed out 2 points to each side. Lewis and the Union saw that they could never be completely successful in a national strike until they had brought the Southern Appalachians into the Union. The miners of southern West Virginia saw that they, by striking, could achieve some of the benefits that the nation's miners had received that winter. This, of course, brought about discussions for organizing the Southern Appalachian coalfields, and they zeroed in on the Tug River field of southern West Virginia along the Kentucky border.
Frank Keeney, now president of District 17, was responsible for all Union activity in southern West Virginia. From his headquarters in Charleston, he dispatched organizers into the non-Union counties of Logan and Mingo. Said Keeney, "If our organizers come back in pine boxes, neither heaven nor hell will stop the miners."
Rumors and some true stories reached Keeney in Charleston about the brutal treatment which was visited upon organizers of the Union and, in fact, upon miners who joined the Union. It was certainly true that organizers in southern West Virginia were frequently beaten, jailed, and run out of the area forcefully. The rumors went far beyond that. There were stories that the miners who joined the Union were beaten and murdered. Their wives and children were beaten and murdered, and their bodies stacked up on street corners. These stories spread throughout West Virginia and aroused the miners to such fury that in September, Keeney mobilized 3,000 of them along Lenz Creek near Charleston to begin a march across southern West Virginia to correct this situation.
To march into Mingo would have meant going over the top of Blair Mountain. It also meant that the miners would have to pass through Logan County, a notoriously anti-Union stronghold. Controlled by its powerful Sheriff Don Chafin, the county had been a block to Union organizing in southern West Virginia for years. Everyone knew that the fight for Mingo would have to start in Logan.
I was always scared to go to Logan County. It was just, it was frightful to think that they were under that, they couldn't unionize, or they couldn't do what they wanted to.
Don Chafin was ran out of Logan County in them days, and when Don Chafin spoke, why everybody rised, you know. They believed him in him as a lord or something, and he wasn't going to have the Union in Logan County.
Desperate to avert catastrophe, the current governor, John J. Cornwell, promised that he would personally investigate the alleged murders in Logan and Mingo. So the miners turned back, waiting to see what would become of the governor's promise. But they made it clear it wouldn't take much to make them march again. Richest coal-producing areas in southern West Virginia was located in Mingo and McDowell counties near the Kentucky border.
The Union began active organizing efforts by sending professional organizers into the Tug River area. The operators along the Tug were as hostile and as opposed to the idea of unionization as anyone in the country, even more so than those along Paint Creek and Cabin Creek.
In the spring of 1920, Frank Keeney called for a strike of all the miners in the region. Once again, coal operators locked out Union miners, and Baldwin Felt's agents were brought in to carry out eviction orders. Their task complete, the gunmen went into nearby Matewan village to wait for a train that would take them back to their Bluefield headquarters. Matewan's chief of police, Sid Hatfield, along with the mayor and a few striking miners, walked to the depot and challenged the agent's authority. Tempers flared, and a gunfight broke out. But it all looked pre-planned. Shots were fired from rooftops and from second-story windows. When the smoke cleared, 10 men were dead at the Matewan depot. 7 of them were Baldwin Felt's agents, including Albert and Lee Felt's, brothers of Thomas Felt's, the agency's owner. The mayor and 2 striking miners were also killed. Events at Matewan gained national attention, and Sid Hatfield emerged from the controversy as a popular hero of the miners. The Matewan massacre lent passion to the Union cause, and within weeks, 90% of the miners in Mingo County had taken the Union oath.
The Matewan massacre gave the strikers something to rally around. This time they took the offensive. They became more militant and determined to win the strike. A form of guerrilla warfare broke out that summer and continued in the fall and winter of 1920 and 21. In January of 1921, Sid and Ed Chambers and other miners who were involved in the Matewan massacre were tried for the murder of the Baldwin Felts detectives in their home county of Mingo, and the jury acquitted all of them on the grounds, I believe, they felt the Baldwin Felts detectives had it coming to them.